So the amount of times we have to actually undo things in Adobe Photoshop is unbelievable. But what if there was a better way to undo things which was slightly more creative than just pressing the undo shortcut on your keyboard? Well, introducing the tool that we're going to be using today, which is of course the History Brush tool. Great, so hopefully we've all got Photoshop open so we can follow along with this tutorial. What we're going to do is actually mess up this image as much as we can so we can actually explain how the History Brush works. Because obviously in order to undo something, we actually need to make some changes on the layer that we want to affect. So what I'm going to do is quickly go to the brush tool by pressing B on my keyboard. And then I'm just going to quickly draw something random on our image. In fact, I might quickly undo that and just select a nicer color. So let's just select a green and then let's leave it white for the other one. So what I'm going to do is just quickly make some very random drawings. Obviously they look awful and that's kind of the idea. I could even use another tool such as the clone stamp tool. Select here and replicate that part here. Just to mess our image up even further. I might even just create a border using the white. Very rough, like so. Basically, the most important thing is that we've made changes to our image, and even though they look terrible, they will hopefully demonstrate well in this video. So obviously, in order to normally undo, what we'd press is Command and Z on our keyboard, or Control and Z if you're on Windows. So as you can see, every time I press Command and Z, it undoes one of those stages, and then by the end of it, we can go back to our original image. Now, if you want to be more precise than that, what we can normally do is open up the history panel in Photoshop so we can actually see every change that we've made. So in order to do that, what you can do is go to a window at the top and go to history. And then as you can see on the right hand side here, it basically opens up that history panel. So I'm just going to quickly make that its own window and just move it here, just so we've got it nice and beside our content. So as you can see, all of these options here are actually the changes that we made, and we can actually undo them by going all the way back to the start, or actually redo them by going all the way back to the bottom of that list. But like I said, if we want to do this a bit more creatively, what we can do is use the History Brush tool. So in order to find the History Brush tool, it's on the left-hand toolbar with all of our other tools, and it's just two below the brush tool. So as you can see, it's this one here, just below the clone stamp tool. And as you can see by the infographic, the shortcut to the History Brush tool is Y. So just making sure that is selected. As you can see, it's basically a normal brush, so we can affect all of the normal things like in our normal brush, the blending mode, the opacity, the flow, etc. You can also change the hardness and size of your brush. And basically the only thing that you've got to watch out for is what you're actually using as the source. So one of the things you'll notice is in the history panel, this icon has now changed to the history brush icon. So basically this sets the source as it says for the history brush. So anytime I'm making changes, I can go back to this original state. If I only wanted to affect up to this point, as you can see, I can place this icon here and it will actually affect everything I've done underneath this option. But for now, let's actually start by making the entire canvas the source. So all you have to do in order to actually start using this brush is just using the brush like a normal brush and just start drawing over any of the changes that you want to undo. So for example, this line here, if I wanted to undo that, I can literally draw over that like so. I could even get rid of these parts like the border. And as you can see, I can literally just delete as much as I want. Also deleting the clone stamp option that we did. I can increase the hardness, also undo it like that, until obviously we have all of our changes gone. Now another cool thing is if you actually change the source to the history brush option, so these options were obviously added when we started using the history brush. If I press on this option here, we can also use the history brush to actually undo the history brush option. So as you can see, it's actually undoing all of those changes that I made in that second history brush option. If I go to the brush, then I can actually undo the changes in the previous history brush. So as you can see, that would be this one here. And now as you can see, basically when I have this icon over the brush tool, it basically allows me to change any of these options below. Now, if I quickly delete these history brush options, like so, just so we're left with what we originally had. If, for example, I want to only affect the changes that happened with our border. So as you can see, that was probably these last few ones here. So basically everything after the clone stamp tool option was me creating that border using the brush tool. So if I only wanted to affect that, what I'd have to do is add that icon to the left of the clone stamp tool. So as you can see, this option here, and everything after that will now be affected. So as you can see, if I'm using the brush on any content prior to the clone stamp tool, as you can see, nothing is being affected. But if I start using the brush over any of these last options, so for example, the border, I am now able to cut those away. So that's obviously another great thing about the history brush tool, is that we can actually choose what we want to affect so we don't actually undo everything that we've done on that image. Now, another thing to realize is you can actually go ahead and save your document in this state. So for example, if I press Command and S in order to save this document, it will still remember the original image. So I can actually still, if I quickly change the source back to the top option, I can actually still undo everything even after I've made any changes and saved my document. Great, so that's basically what the history brush does in Adobe Photoshop. If you're interested in learning how you can actually draw patterns using the brush tool, which is another great tool that's slightly hidden in Photoshop, then do check out the video in the top right hand corner of the end screen. And otherwise, do remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed the content, and also do subscribe to the channel to make sure you never miss a new Photoshop tutorial.